Hi, in this Unity tutorial, I want to go over the basics of 2D collision. In a 2D game, you have sprites, and the sprites only move on a flat plane of X or Y. And here I have an example of what we're going to have at the end of this is this little blacky character, and he can move through this um, purple thing, but not this one. And there's a reason for it. It's because of the different types of colliders we used. On this collider, we used the edge collider. On this sprite, we used the edge collider, and on this sprite, we just used the Polygon Collider. All right, so let me start from scratch and show you how we do this. So I'm going to have a new scene, and first thing for all 2D games that we have to do is we have to be able to get some sprites, and the sprites have to have transparency. So here I'm having a tool I found online called Draw Island, drawisland.com, and I'm going to pick a size for my picture right here in the white. And then I'm also going to say that I want a transparent background. This is the important feature that makes the difference, is the transparent background feature. So with the transparent background feature, I can draw something and only that thing would be shown in the game. It won't show whatever is on the other side of it. I could change colors here. Oh, let me do that. Change color, double click, and say choose. And if I want, I could change colors. And I could just make a drawing of something and then save this with the save button. I'll save it to my desktop, Draw Island PNG. And when I save it to my desktop, you can see here it is in black with the outlined transparent, the background's transparent. So that's what I did. I used this Draw Island tool to make the two sprites I have here, the character and the platform. So now what I'm going to do is, sorry, I got to code. This is a 2D project, a 2D Unity game project, and when it starts up, it's this white area outlines what's visible in the game view. If your game view, you can control the size of it. Over here in the game panel, there's a thing that says the size of your window. So if you don't see the size you want here, you could specify it right here if you wanted to. So first things first, I'm going to drag one of these sprites in here. And with this tool over here, I could resize the sprite to whatever I want. And I'm just going to resize it to cover the floor. And then I could have another sprite over here like I did in the demo and have that one a little bit taller. And then maybe make a copy of that one, duplicate, and move the second one over here. Okay, so I'll also put in my character. So I put all the sprites in the game window in the scene, and if I press play, nothing's going to happen. There's no rigid bodies, there's no colliders. So first thing I'll do is I'll take my character black and I will add a rigid body to him. So in 2D games, you're going to use physics 2D, not physics. So here in add component, I go to physics 2D, and then there's a 2D version of everything. So there's a 2D version of the rigid body. Bam. So I add a rigid body on. Sorry, I got like a cold. Then I press play, and now black has a rigid body on him, so he will drop down to the ground. So there's how do you control gravity on the rigid body? It's this setting right here, gravity scale. And I could reduce it down to 0, and then he will not drop. Or I could increase it to some crazy number like 100, and he will drop even harder. Press play. Okay, so this is the gravity field, and I'm going to leave it set to 1. Now the reason he's going through the floor is because there's no collider on black and there's no collider on any of the platforms. So let me take the first platform here and I'm going to add a collider. So I go to physics 2D and there's different colliders. If I use a box collider, then it basically outlines the entire size of the sprite. That's not what I'm looking for, so I'll remove that. If I use the edge collider, then what it does is it draws a flat line where it sees the sprite. And what I'm able to do, if I want to, make it more clear, I could say edit the collider, and I have this little dot. So I could click on dot and I could move that point into position along the surface. Okay. Basically adding points as I go so that I have an edge collider that kind of matches just the top and not the body. Okay, now I'm also going to add a collider to black. And for black, I want to add a collider that wraps all the way around him. So I'm going to add a physics 2D Polygon Collider. And the Polygon Collider outlines the entire sprite. So now I have 2 colliders, and one of my objects has a rigid body. I have the required amount of things to actually do collision detection. So, bam, and he falls and lands on the surface. But he will not, if I pick him up over here, these 2 things, they still don't have any colliders on them, so he will fall right through them. So now what I want to do with these 2 is explain the difference between the edge collider and the polygon collider. So the edge collider only detects for a collision on the top. If I take this first platform and to it I add an edge collider as well as I did from the floor, then the top is checked with a collision. Then on the second one, I'm going to add a polygon collider. So it's going to check for collisions all around the object. So let's see, if I press play, he'll drop, oop, he hit the corner of that edge collider. Whoa, 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 come back. And let's, he's spinning around. If I don't want him to spin around, I mean, it's a nice, cool effect, but if I don't want him to spin around, then I could select black, and on the rigid body, I could constrain the rotation. Okay, and I'm just going to put him over this platform where there's an edge collider only on the top. Boom, and he lands on the top. And if I put him on this collider where it's a whole polygon collider, he also will land on the top. Now for the second test I want to show you with this, I'm going to have to add a script to black, and it's a user control script that's just going to control movement. And I'll show you the script. Small. Basically here we have a move speed, and then over here in the update function, we're going to read the horizontal axis input. And the horizontal axis input is a value from -1 to 1, depending on what key I'm pressing, or if I have a joystick, it's a smooth amount of values between them. So horizontal is a value from -1 to 1. And then what here we do is we take the object this script is attached to, which is black, and we get the transform, and we translate on the vector 3 right axis. So that means a positive number would move us to the right, and a negative number would move us to the left. If horizontal is positive, we go to the right. If horizontal is negative, we go to the left. And that value only increments from -1 to 1. So we have move speed to multiply, so we can move a little bit faster than 1 unit. And then we always multiply by time delta time to smooth the movement across all computers. Okay, so what we're going to have here, oh, then also over here we have a detection for when the black sprite hits anything and it's just going to tell us what it hit here in this debug log statement, which prints down there. Okay, so that's the script. Make sure I save it, and I go back here, and I'm going to run it. So he will still drop, and now I have control to move left or right. And let me move this way and come down to this platform. So now let's look. The first collider on this surface is only on the edge. So as black moves forward, he could still move through that object. But the second object, the collider, is the whole sprite. So if black tries to move through that object, he can't, he bumps into the sprite. So one other thing here, say we want black to pass through this object, but we want him to be drawn in front of the platform. Sprites have something called order and layer. So by default, when you put a sprite in your scene, the order and layer is 0. So all you have to do is increment the number for black to be higher than the other sprites. So if all these other sprites have order and layer 0, the default value when I put them in the scene, all you have to do is take black and make this a higher number, like 1. So now black, when I move him past an object, he will be in front of them. Okay? So if I press play, you can go through this one and not that one, but he's drawn in front. So these are some of the very, very basics of 2D collision. There you go.